Hey everyone, it's Rob B here with Rob D, and you are listening to the Property Podcast. And you know, sometimes we go big picture on the podcast, but this week we're getting right in the trenches and we're giving you loads of actionable advice that you can implement today. Make sure you have your pen and paper ready because you'll want to note this stuff down.
Welcome to the Property Podcast. Rob D here with Rob B. We spend our weeks advising a multi-million pound property fund, which you can find out more about at portfolio.co.uk. And over the years, we've put together thousands of transactions. And this is the show where we bring you all the knowledge that we've gained along the way for free. Investing is a complex business and it's a long-term business, but it all starts with actually finding that investment in the first place. And if you can find it more efficiently and effectively than others, then you're off to a pretty good start. And that's what this episode is all about. So keep listening because loads of tips that we've built up in over a decade of using these tools are coming up for you in just a moment.
So it's time for our news story of the week right now. And I canine believe this one, Rob. The headline reads, shock research, 27% of landlords have no idea their tenants have cats or dogs.
I'm glad you got the pun in already because isn't even that good a news story. I just picked it because I knew you'd want to do a pun. But this is actually quite interesting. A survey of 1,000 renters found that 27% are keeping pets without their landlord's knowledge, which is quite a lot. What's equally interesting is the type of pets that are being kept secret. So apparently birds. Birds are the most secretly kept pets in the UK. So I've learned something today. Second place, rabbits. Third place, horses. So, Rob, next time you go and do inspections of your city centre flats, be on the lookout for a horse hidden in the wardrobe or something like that.
Although, Rob, I do hear you get a stable rent from them.
There we go. Let's see how many more you can get in. The serious point behind this, Rob, which is something we've talked about before, is that this is a situation that you can help with and help yourself by just allowing pets. Because as this research shows, it is an issue. People have pets. They're having them anyway. So if you actually allow pets, so first of all, it's better to know what's happening in your property than not know. But secondly, you're more likely to get tenants who will stay because they frankly don't have that many other options.
Yeah, if you don't offer your properties to people with pets, other people will. And we talked about this before. You can go to efforts to make sure that the pet they are bringing in is a good pet. You can ask for references of previous landlords who've accommodated them and to see how their pets behave there. Or if you live close to your property, even go and meet the pet to see how it behaves. Is it all over the place or is it actually just a quite calm pet? I mean, say no to all pets just completely is really costing you because I don't think hamsters are going to cause that much damage or a goldfish. So rather than have a blanket no pet policy, possibly be open to some types of pets if you really do feel uncomfortable. But saying no to all types of pets is probably just going to cost you money. But if you are worried that one of your current tenants has a pet, maybe you can snoop to see if they have a dog. I don't think I can squeeze any more puns out of this one. Let's move on, Rob. Now, if you're a regular listener to the Property Podcast, you will know we've launched Portfolio, which is an app that we're ridiculously excited about. It's massive for us, and hopefully it's massive for the whole property industry. And it's going great. You know, of course, you're going to have bumps in the road with any big, audacious project that you go after or start, but it's brilliant, and we are loving building it. And we've had a tech team, and still have a tech team, helping us build it. But we want to level up even further to allow us to be even more ambitious. And we're looking for a lot of people to join our team right now. We're really expanding. But there's a role that we wanted to put to you, our audience, because we want to work with people like you. A lot of people actually who work at Property Hub have come via the podcast and applied that way. And they're a great culture fit. They really get who we are as a company and what we're trying to achieve. They share similar values because they've listened to us for so long. And if you listen to us, you can decide either, oh, I don't like them very much, or I quite like those guys. The rest of the team are just like us, people who share similar values to us. So with all that in mind, we've been really focusing on and thinking about a hire that's super important to us and will really transform our business and help us move in the ambitious direction that we want to go in. And that is a CTO, a Chief Technical Officer. So that's somebody who's going to join our executive team and be in charge essentially of the app and its future and how it's going to be built and all the fantastic features that it will have in the future. We've just put it on our website, so it's in time for this episode, because before we go to recruiters and before we start advertising it far and wide and bringing in hopefully lots of talented people in to speak to us, we wanted to put it out to our audience first, Rob, because that CTO might be listening, or somebody listening might know that CTO.
Definitely. So I would say if you're listening to this now and you fit this description, or you know someone who might fit this description, we would love you to get in touch or to pass it on. So we're looking for someone obviously with a lot of technical experience, somebody who's led development teams before, and someone who specifically has experience with building mobile applications. And that person could be a CTO already. So somebody who's already in that role, but they're looking to come and work on a new project that they're frankly more excited by than what they are doing at the moment. Or it could be somebody who's a lead developer and wants to become a CTO, and they've just been waiting for that opportunity to make the step up to the top rung of the ladder. If you're listening to this thinking, oh wow, that sounds like me, then go to propertyhub.net/jobs. You'll find the job description there to learn more, and we'd love to hear from you. Or if you know somebody who you think, oh, you know what, that sounds a bit like my friend, and they were saying that they were looking for something new or whatever, then go to propertyhub.net/jobs, grab the link, send it to them on WhatsApp or whatever, and let them know, because if it does turn out to be a great fit for them, they will be extremely grateful. They might even buy you a beer or something. You never know. But this is a really exciting role. It's coming in right at the top as part of the executive team and working on something that we believe will be used by hundreds of thousands of people and will transform an industry. We're off to a heck of a start with it, and there is so much more to do. So it's certainly not going to be boring.
Yes, so do get your application in, send your CV in. And when you send it, please do mention that you listened to the podcast or you heard about it through the podcast, because the reason we're doing this is, as we said, we found that people who listen to the podcast are kind of our people. We like podcast listeners. You're a great bunch and we want to work with more of you. So please do mention that. And if this role doesn't quite fit, but you think, you know what, I'd love to work on Portfolio or work with Property Hub, well, check out the jobs page. Again, to remind you, it's propertyhub.net/jobs. There's loads in there, and there's loads more to come as well. So if you go and have a look and go, oh, actually, one of those doesn't quite suit me, well, bookmark the page, save it, because we are expanding at a rapid rate right now. It's an exciting place to be, and there's lots of exciting things happening within the company. So, yeah, if you have ever thought, oh, you know what, it might be great to work with those guys, well, if you think that is true, then do check out that page, and particularly if you're a CTO. Bit of an unusual one for the podcast now, but a serious one, because a good friend of mine reached out recently because he knows a little girl who needs some help. Her name is Bo, and unfortunately she has stage 4 high-risk cancer, and it's a childhood cancer that's rare and aggressive, and she needs special treatment. And for that treatment, she'll need to go to New York for a clinical trial, which hopefully will help her. Now, it's a large sum of money that needs to be raised, and I feel that anybody who can help or is interested in this, I'm sure Bo and her family will be very grateful. The link will be in the show notes, which is a Just Giving page if you'd like to find out more and possibly donate. But if you want to go there straight away and not look at the show notes, then it's justgiving.com campaign, Bo's campaign. And check it out there. And that's BEAUS. We wish Bo and her family the very best, and we hope that their campaign is successful and the treatment goes well. And if anybody is interested to look at that and possibly even help out, then I'm sure they'd appreciate that too. Thanks a lot, everyone.
The property market is booming, which is wonderful news. If you've already got a portfolio, you could almost watch it going up in value day by day. But it's not so great if you're still trying to build that portfolio, because it's not the easiest time to do deals. If you want to buy anything at the moment, let alone get something at a good price, you need to know all your tools. You need to have super sharp research skills, and you need to be able to move fast. And that is why today we're talking about how to use one of the most basic, but one of the most important tools still available to property investors, which is the property portals. And we're going to be focusing on Rightmove, but we'll be talking about the others as well. Rightmove is something that anyone can use, and millions of people do use it, but that doesn't mean that everybody uses it optimally. And by knowing some of the tricks that we're going to go through today, you might just be able to get yourself an edge over other investors, find properties they haven't found, angles they haven't, and save yourself a lot of time in the process.
So for the one person listening out of the tens of thousands who's not heard of Rightmove, Rightmove allows you to search for property. And it's very simple. On the homepage, you type in the area or the postcode of where you want to search, the radius of how far away from that place that you're prepared to search. And then you can, if you want, just click search, and you can search for places to buy or places to rent. And then you can start to narrow it down as well to price range, the type of property, the number of bedrooms, and things like when it was added to the site. You can also use a button to see rent agreed and also properties under offer, which we'll come back to a little bit later. So as a search tool for just finding a property to buy or rent, Rightmove is fantastic and works very well. But as Rob's already said, you can go way beyond that.
So let's start with searches, because I think this is where there's the potential to save yourself the most time and avoid missing out on really interesting properties. Because your basic search is fine, but it's just based on a radius. So you might have a postcode that you know you're interested in, and then anything within half a mile is fair game. That'll be of interest to you. And sometimes it'll work that way, but most of the time, if you've got a bit of local knowledge, there's more to it than just the radius. So for example, I'm looking at a particular part of London on Rightmove right now. Because I know the area, I know that everything to the east of a particular road is going to be of interest to me, and everything to the west isn't. So if I just use the radius, I'll get lots of irrelevant results in there to the west that are cluttering things up. And also, I might not be going far enough to the east to capture everything I'm interested in. So this is where you want to use drawn search areas. You start off by doing a basic search, then you'll see a map, and under that will be edit this area. If you click on that, you can actually draw out the exact boundaries of your search on the map. You can then name that area and save it to come back to in the future if you want to. You can set up alerts based on that, which we'll come to later on. But that means that you're going to be filtering out everything that you're not interested in and capturing exactly what you are. So if you don't already do that, and this is the one thing that you take away from this episode, I think you've already got your money's worth, because that is a huge time saver.
But let's up the value, because I think this is probably the most underutilized tool on Rightmove, and it's the keywords section. And most people miss it. It's actually not that obvious on the website where it is. So when you put your search information in, it's not in that section. It's actually when you get your results delivered. And at the top, above the first listing, is a little section that says add keyword. And this is where the magic happens, because you might be looking for something specific. So to give you an example, if you're looking for a property with land because you might want to extend a property out or build multiple properties on that land and extract value that way, well, then you could search for the word acres. And then you're going to find the properties where they are advertising that it has a number of acres to the plot. It's a very simple way of using that tool, but highly effective. It really helps you with your search. Another example could be penthouse. So if you're looking in a city centre, but you're looking for something special, something that's going to stand out on the rental market, then type in the word penthouse and look for all the penthouses in that chosen area. You're limited by your imagination here. Whatever you're looking for, wherever your strategy, I'm sure there's a keyword that can help you narrow down the search and help you find the properties that you want. So I believe that the majority of people listening today don't use that feature. However, it's one of the most important features that Rightmove has if you're using it as a search tool for your property investments.
It is. And by the way, you can do the same thing on Zoopla as well. They've got the same feature that's hidden under the advanced search options. And you can do it on Zoopla. I don't think you can do this on Rightmove. I could be wrong, but you could use negative keywords. So if you put a minus sign directly in front of a word, you can exclude that. So often if you search for one bed apartments, for example, it'll bring up studio flats as well. If you're not interested in studios, you can set up studio as a negative search term to cut out any listings that include that word. So that can work really nicely as well. So using those tips, hopefully you've now found lots of listings that you're interested in. Having done that, you can then go and do a little bit of research into the history and the value of those properties. So on Rightmove, if you're looking at a particular property listing, if you scroll all the way down below the map and below where they're trying to sell you mortgages and broadband deals, you can see property sale history, which is where you'll be able to see any information that they've got about that property in the past. Sometimes there'll be something there, sometimes they won't, but there's also a link there to go to nearby sold prices. You could also get to that from the top menu by going to house prices, just an alternative way of getting there. And when you do that, you can see what houses have sold for in the past in that exact postcode. If that exact postcode isn't throwing up much, you can then use the filters to broaden it out a bit. If it's throwing up too much, then you can use some of the other filters to narrow it down a little bit. That isn't perfect because it takes time for sold prices to get onto the land registry. So anything that's been sold in the last 6 months or so probably won't be on there, but it'll allow you to get some kind of historical information. And often if you click on one of the particular listings in there, you'll actually be able to go and see the photos from when it was listed before it sold at that price, which can give you useful information about the size and the condition of the property to sort of see how it fares relative to the one that you're looking at, to give you an idea of whether the asking price is within the realm of reality and how much you should really be paying for this particular property.
When you're looking at an investment opportunity as well, you also need to establish the rental levels. Like, what are you going to get rent-wise on this property? Whether it's tenanted or not, you should always look at this because the tenancy that you have may be under-rented or over-rented. So if you are buying a property with a tenant in situ, then you need to still do this. So you go onto Rightmove, but instead of looking for a property to buy, you're looking for a property to rent. You type in all the parameters. So if you're looking at a 2-bed apartment, restricted to just 2 beds, restricted to within 1/4 mile of that area because you want true comparables. So going out to 1/2 mile just isn't worth it. It doesn't work. I ignore anything further than 1/4 mile when I'm doing a search. And then look to see what everything is listed for. Now, it's useful to see the asking prices, but it's also useful to look at how long they've been sitting on the market for, which you can do. So we're midway through Feb at the moment. If I'm looking at a rental that's looking really high and it's boosting my numbers up, but it's been on the market since October, well, I probably can't hang my hat on that one. It's probably not going to work. What's really useful, actually, is looking at rent agreed. You can tick a little box and see which properties have already been rented out, and you can get an idea of what they've been rented for. It doesn't give you the exact number, at least it gives you an indication. So that's really useful as well. Now, Rightmove is an incredible tool, and the others are out there. You can do the same thing as well for doing this. But I just want to say at this point, I don't believe that is enough research. It's a great starting point, but I believe the next step is picking up the phone and speaking to the local agents. Again, you can find the local agents on these websites, so that speeds things up for you as well. You can find the local agents in that area, but call them. You could call them as a tenant as well. Be a little bit sneaky and say, okay, I'm looking to rent a 2-bed apartment in this area. What should I be paying? And then you could call back later as a landlord or a prospective landlord and saying, I've got a 2-bed apartment. What do you think I could let it for? See if the number's different. It'd be interesting. If there is 2 different numbers, the real number's probably the one in the middle. So make sure you take that next step as well. Desktop research with rentals isn't enough because you don't have all the information. You have some good guidance, but you don't have it all. So make sure you follow up the next step and pick up the phone.
Definitely. All of this stuff you're doing on the portal should only be the start of your research, but it is a great way to start if you set yourself up right, which is what we're doing here. So those are some really good tips for how to actually navigate the website once you're on there. But how do you get the properties that you're interested in to come to you without having to go to the website all the time? Well, that's where alerts come in, and alerts are really powerful. Any search criteria that you come up with, you can save, and any saved search you can turn into an alert. So saved searches in themselves are a huge time saver because you can do everything that we've talked about in terms of filters, drawing maps, using keywords, everything. You can then just save that, and so you can come back and look again without having to go and re-input all those criteria. But then once you've saved it, you can set up an alert. So you get an email when there's been a change to the properties that come up in that search. And you can choose how often you want to be notified. So you can get notified instantly. And of course, instant is normally pretty good when it comes to property because especially the market being as it is now, things are moving fast. So as soon as a new property comes onto the market, that meets your criteria and drops into that search, you can get an email. That means you can straight away jump onto it if it's of interest to you. So you don't even need to get into a daily habit of going and checking Rightmove. You can just have the properties of interest that you filter down, so you're pretty sure that they will be of interest. You can just have them land in your inbox. And this is why using all these ideas together is really important. Because if you set up a super broad search of every house within a mile, then you're just going to get non-stop alerts, which is going to get really annoying, and you're not going to be in the habit of looking at them, and it's just going to become an irritation and won't be productive for you. However, if you set up a really precise search, so you know that every time you get an email, it's something that's highly likely to be of interest, then you'll be in the habit of jumping on it straight away and taking action. So that is great. However, you don't necessarily always want to be getting things instantly, because there'll be times when you want to keep an eye on the market, but you just don't need to know, or you don't want to know that quickly. So you could also choose to get alerts every 24 hours, every 3 days, or every 7 days. So what I do is, if I am active in a market and I'm looking to buy a particular property in a particular area, then I'll set up alerts for that search to be either instant or every 24 hours. But I also have alerts set up for either areas that I already own in, or areas that I'm somewhat interested in but not looking at being active right now. And for those, I'll set up an alert every 7 days. So that means on a weekly basis, I'll get an alert that has a list of everything that has changed during that time. So I can just scroll through and in a matter of 30 seconds or so, keep a bit of an eye on what's going on. So if it's a block that I already own in, for example, every week I'll get an email. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's come on. Oh, prices seem to be edging up a bit. And really, without any effort at all, I can keep my knowledge current about what's going on in that area. So alerts are super, super powerful. But to get the most out of them, you really do have to set them up right and think about what's going to give you the most valuable information at the right time.
So now you've become a bit of a search guru on Rightmove, and you're probably feeling pretty good. But my dear friend, you've only just begun. You can level up with some incredible tech tools that we're going to recommend to you now. If you use what we're going to recommend, then you really are at the top level of search ninjas when it comes to finding a property. Now, the first one of these tools is completely free to use. It's called Property Log. So Property Log is a Chrome extension. And if you use the Chrome browser, and if you don't, you probably should consider it because it's quite good, you can get this extension which allows you to see all the activity of that particular listing that you're looking at. So when you look at the listing, it shows you when that property was listed, but it also shows you if there's been any change in pricing. So if they've been cutting the price because they're keen to sell, you can see that data, you can see that history, which normal users of Rightmove can't. So you can see if someone is looking quite keen to get rid of a property by constantly reducing the price. That gives you an edge in your negotiation because you know the history of what's transpired. But you also know if a property's been on there for a long time and the price hasn't moved at all, and maybe that seller isn't that motivated. It's only an assumption, but it's a reasonable assumption to come to. And you may not want to spend as much time on that one if you're thinking about trying to get a deal done. So Property Log is free. There is talk of extensive usage requires some sort of price increase, but I've not experienced that myself. There's also Property Tracker, which is a similar thing. So again, you can access that, at least to begin with, for free. So that's really good. Another extension you can use from Rightmove that I've not actually used yet, but I'm going to look at using is Time Travel. And that's really interesting because you may go, okay, I want to be commuting distance to the city centre, whichever city you're interested in. And you may go, okay, I want to be within 30 minutes of this particular train station. What it will do is list all those properties. But if you've got a budget and you don't want to be spending too much money to be within 30 minutes of a certain place, then you can look for those places. And why I think that's really interesting is if a place is quite cheap, well priced at the moment, and it's commuting distance to an important destination, then the chances are it's not going to stay that cheap for that long because good commuter links normally are valued. So whether that's London, Liverpool, or wherever else you're searching, if you type in a key destination within those cities that you want to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it may be, within that location, then you can use that tool. Now, On the Market, which is another search engine, which we've not mentioned yet, has this built into their website as a feature. So if you don't want to add an extension, you can go and use On the Market and use their website to try this and search for commuting times as well. And it also works on Brave, which is another browser which is really good, which has a few more security features built in. So if you're uncomfortable using Chrome and giving Google even more information, then you can check out Brave because all these extensions work there as well.
So we've given you plenty to turn you into a power user, but let's fit in a little bit more by going beyond Rightmove. We've mentioned a couple of times that there are other property search engines available. Zoopla and On the Market are the two other big ones. Rob's already mentioned a useful feature of On the Market, and it's the one that I use the least, but it's the one that I resolve to start using more because it does have some cool features and it seems like it's trying to do more and more. But there's also some specific tricks that you can use on Zoopla that are quite interesting. So if you go into a listing on Zoopla and scroll down, you'll see the listing history box. There's a couple of things that does for you. The first is that it shows you how many people have viewed that listing in the last 30 days. Now, in itself, that doesn't tell you much. I'm looking at one that has 47 views. Is that a lot? Is that not much? I have no idea. But if I went and looked at lots of different properties, I would then maybe start getting an idea of how relatively popular each was, which might tell me something about the level of competition. Again, this is really just the beginning. It's far quicker to just call the agent and find out and start a conversation and build up your knowledge that way. But you can get a certain basic level information by using the websites in this way. The other thing that box does is it gives you the listing history. So it'll tell you when it was first listed. So obviously, if you were using Rightmove and using one of those browser extensions we were talking about, you'd already know that. But if you're not using one of those and you want an equivalent for Zoopla, it tells you that. But it also tells you when the property last sold, and it tells you the exact date and it tells you the price. And that's interesting, partially because it's just an interesting thing to know, but also because with those bits of information, you can go and find out the exact address of the property. So most of the time, it's not going to have the house number or the flat number. You can sometimes figure out the house number just from the photos and comparing that against Street View, but trying to do that with the flat number is a lot more difficult. But if you know when it sold and what it sold for, you can then go into the historic house prices section of Rightmove or Zoopla, look it up there, find a match, and then you know exactly which property number you're talking about. So there's useful little things you can do on Zoopla as well. But the main thing to say about all the portals is do use all of them, because it's not the case that every property is listed on every portal. Rightmove, I believe, has the most coverage, certainly for sales. The majority of properties will be on Rightmove, but not all of them. So while it's fine to have a favourite platform that you're just in the habit of using and you know all the tricks and you can do your routine on autopilot, do take the time to go and check out listings sometimes on all three of those platforms, because you will sometimes come across a listing that you'd otherwise have missed. And if you've missed it, then maybe other people would have done as well. So there's more chance of being able to get the property at the price you want.
So Hub Extra is an easy one because it's a recap of some of the tools that we've listed already. So we've mentioned Property Log, which is a Chrome and Brave extension. We've mentioned Property Tracker. We've mentioned the travel time search feature on the market. There's lots for you to go at this week. So rather than bombarding you with something else in addition and something else new, if you haven't installed at least some of those yet, then do it. It's just going to make your life as a property investor easier. Even if you use somebody else to source your properties for you, you still want to research their research. So get that information in your hands. Go and download them now. It's a few clicks of a button. It's super simple, and you level up as a property investor. For me, that's an easy win.
Well, there you go. Hopefully, as a result of listening to this episode, you now know plenty of tricks that you didn't know before that you can use to go and find yourself a deal that you might otherwise have missed. Have you got any tips and tricks of your own? We'd love to know. We're on all the social networks at Property Hub UK. So please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And do join us again next Thursday on the Property Podcast, where we've got an episode that's going to be a little bit controversial. That's all I'm going to say. To find out more about that, join us next Thursday. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.